Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host, Gershwan, and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about powerful Xeno empires that threaten the Imperium, outside of your standard Orcs, Eldar, Necrons, Tyranids, all that good stuff. We're talking about the Khrave. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K content every single day. And if you have any suggestions or have any questions that you guys would like us to create a video about, just comment down below. We check the comments every day. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the Xeno species known as the Khrave. The Khrave are sentient Xeno species that have managed to capture and control many planets within the Milky Way galaxy. Their empires have clashed with humanity since man began to venture into space. Incredibly gifted in psychic disciplines, these beings use their powers to enslave human populations in order to feed on their minds. Enslavement by this race is one of the worst possible outcomes for any colonized planet in the Imperium. The captured are treated like cattle, kept in massive, dirty enclosures, and forced to continually breed in order to maintain a steady supply of food. The living conditions are appalling, even compared to the cramped and horrible spaces seen on the worst hive cities of the Imperium. These Khrave incursions have plagued humanity since the dark age of technology, and they hit an all-time high during the Age of Strife, when thousands of colonized worlds were raided by the Khrave, seeing that humanity was at its weakest. During this time, all records of the existence of this threat was lost or purposefully destroyed. And it wasn't until the Emperor launched his Great Crusade that these mind-eaters were rediscovered. On the once human-controlled planet of Syric 17, the Great Crusade clashed with the Khrave. Many attempts to liberate the world were attempted by the Imperial Army, but the forces of the Imperium were always pushed back. What humanity found on Syric 17 struck fear down to their very core. Detailed descriptions of these creatures are very rare, as most of these descriptive reports were ignored by Imperial scholars, who only cared to view them as Xeno scum. But the few bits of information that could be gathered point to the Khrave being massive and possessing tentacled heads. Their overall appearance was that of a Terran sea anemone with legs. Some scholars believe that these tentacled monstrosities came from the same gene stock as the Mintu conglomerate, which was another Xeno empire that resembled physically powerful sea anemones. It is most likely that the Khrave are the ancestors of one of the many warrior races created by the Old Ones to help them fight the war in heaven against the Necrons. This is reinforced by the many similarities found within the Khrave compared to other known warrior races like the Eldar and the Orcs. The Old Ones might have even used the ancient Khrave as runner-up warriors until they managed to perfect their genetic manipulation and create the Eldar or the Krork. Like the Orcs, these creatures never stop growing so long as they have a steady supply of food. The Khrave encountered on Syric 17 managed to grow terribly strong, surpassing the strength of the Space Marines and even rivaling the bulk of the mighty Primarchs. Even deadlier than their size, the Khrave used their individual psychic powers to forge weapons called war glamours. These were bladed weapons that used solidified warp matter as blades, making them inherently dangerous and easily capable of cleaving a full armored space marine in two. It's a technology that has been used in projectile weaponry akin to the Imperial bolter, where these warp shards serve as the weapon's ammunition. Khrave weaponry was so potent a tool of destruction that it was used in the creation of the Extinction Carbine, weapons used by several warbands of Black Shields during the Horus Heresy era. The fact that humans are able to use these weapons indicate that they are not psychically fueled, although their use has been strictly forbidden. Eventually, the planet of Syric 17 was liberated. It was the Emperor's 12th Legion, the recently rebaptized World Eaters under the Primarch Angron, that would succeed where others had failed. The Khrave were completely wiped out on that world. Multiple Khrave empires were discovered thereafter, but unlike other empires that looked to establish long-standing civilizations, the Khrave were found to be nomadic, moving their civilizations along to the next planet once the food supplies had been depleted. The Khrave travel from planet to planet in fleets consisting of large and smaller vessels referred to as web ships or nest webs, which seem to boast an impressive quantity of hibernation pods, both for the use of their own and that of their stored food. So powerful is Khrave engineering that the defense shields generated by these ships is the same shield technology that was able to fend off Imperial arsenal on Syric 17 for so long. Once the Khrave took control of a planet, they quickly evaluated the world's resources and created a plan to utilize the planet's materials to the best of their ability. They carefully monitored and controlled their own population so as not to overstretch their resources. Khrave empires could last for centuries until the decision to migrate was made. Who made these decisions is not clear, because while the Khrave have demonstrated a strong social cohesion, it is unknown if they are governed by a sort of political leader or an alpha male, a council of influential individuals, or, as their psychic potential might indicate, a form of justile psychic collective, like a hive mind. The largest Khrave empire ever encountered was on the once mighty world of Indra-Sol, which was an explorator port during the Dark Age of technology. But upon its discovery by Corvus Corax, the Primarch of the Raven Guard Legion, it was reduced to a wasteland. One last surviving structure that shot out from the planet's crust and into space, a glittering spire of silver many kilometers thick that ended in a series of branch-like docking tendrils that blanketed the sky of one hemisphere. Within this great structure, the Raven Guards found the last survivors of Indra-Sol and the creatures who now ruled them. During the Age of Strife, the Khrave had systematically harvested the population of Indra-Sol over the course of many centuries. Corax could not face the suffering of the people of Indra-Sol, no more than he could have left the people of his homeworld of deliverance in bondage to the tech guilds. Despite suggestions from some Terran-born captains to release nerve-phage gas into the facility that would effectively kill both the Xeno Master and their human slaves as the most effective solution, the Primarch laid plans for the salvation of Indra-Sol's population. Refusing to commit either his own legionnaires or the soldiers of the Thorian cohort to a war of attrition intended to take the spire level by level, the Raven Lord personally led a force of less than 2,000 legionnaires, selected from the ranks of the Raven Guard's reconnaissance and infiltration companies, into the structure. Infiltrating the massive spire at its midpoint by insertion from specially modified Shadowhawks and Darkwing gunships, the Space Marines were confronted with visions of the past. The survivors of the human population of Indra-Sol were wretched and malformed, packed into chambers like cattle. Some Raven Guard detachments also encountered the Khrave, towering monstrosities gorged on centuries of captive bounty, impossibly strong and wielding foul warp glamours. Only with much slaughter were they able to slay such creatures. The Raven Guard, both of Terra and Deliverance, instinctively fell into the doctrines of guerrilla warfare, leaving their foes dazed and confused until they were finally slain. Discovering the hibernation chambers of the slumbering Khrave, soon the fell Xenos began to stir from their slumber. The Raven Guard made a tactical withdrawal, while the Raven Lord and a demi-company of those who had fought at his side on Deliverance took the near-suicidal duty of providing a rear guard, while the remaining Raven Guard accompanying him raced to deploy their teleport beacon array. Despite the slaughter that ensued, the Raven Guard held their ground, fighting to their last breath, with only the desire to slay their foes until death claimed them. Finally, after a solar hour of non-stop combat, a flash of light announced the arrival of the Deliverers, a company of Terran-born Raven Guard clad in Terminator armor. Grim in aspect and wielding an array of fearsome weapons not usually favored by the subtle tactics of the Raven Guard. Deliverers' massed firepower pushed the Khrave back, and the Terran Legionnaires advanced. The ferociousness of these Terran Raven Guard finished what the stoic determination of their brethren from Deliverance had begun. Within hours, the Raven Guard had cleansed the spire of the Xenos' foul presence. Now secured as a base for the Great Crusade's push into the Ghoul Stars, Indra-Sol was given into the custody of the Mechanicum, and the Raven Guard made their preparations for their next conquest. Unbeknownst to the Raven Guard, the Iterators and other Imperial servants, following on the heels of the Legion's advance, would later condemn the survivors to a living death as servitor laborers, seeing them as corrupted in both mind and body. Although not as large and powerful as they were during the Great Crusade, the Khrave continue to be a threat to the Imperium to this day. It is very uncharacteristic of them to openly go to war against an Imperial planet, like in ages past, Instead, they used their cunning to trap worlds. To naive planetary governors, this alien race might seem like a tempting ally, but on multiple occasions, the psychically powerful Khrave have managed to eradicate the ruling elite of a planet, while slowly, secretly, and carefully enslaving the population. One example of this was on the world of Ampharel, where a splinter web of Khrave were openly invited by the Parliament of the world to act as mercenaries on their behalf. Upon meeting the planet's ruling council, the Mind Eaters took control of the elected officials, and with the Parliament under their control, the Khrave began to corrupt the world. As the number of mysterious disappearances and discovered corpses rose, vigilant members of the ecclesiarchy recognized the threat and made the civilization rise up in revolt, thus thwarting the Khrave's plan. The Ordo Xeno stands vigil against any such attacks from the Khrave, and many great inquisitors have fallen to this menace, like the Inquisitor Umbra Nox, who bravely fought and died in an operation against a Khrave incursion. And those were 40 facts on the Khrave. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to share it with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media you guys use. It really helps out the channel when you do so. It helps us create more content when you guys share, so please share. How sad and grimdark was the outcome of that planet, the Indra Sol, that was liberated by the Raven Guard? They were enslaved for their entire life. Then they finally get freed by the Raven Guard, only to become lobotomized machines. Their life basically ended. That is just absolutely sad. And I can't imagine how Corax feels. Like, Corvus Corax comes back to the planet, and he talks to the tech priest, or the fabricator general of the planet. And Corax asks, so how are my people doing? Are they doing all right? And then the tech priest is like, no, yeah, they're great. He's trying to avoid the whole conversation, and then Corax keeps going with it. Like, oh, did they assimilate pretty well to the Imperial Creed? Are they all good? And then the tech priest is like, yeah, no problems at all. Corax is of course confused. He's like, really? No uprising? Nothing at all? And then the tech priest just like, yeah, no. And then Corax finally says, well, can I see one of them? Can I talk to them? Did they heal all right? And then the tech priest is like, well, actually, you're sitting on one. And then Corax is all surprised, what? And then the tech priest is like, yeah, it turns out that we had to turn them all into servitors, and we had a lot, so we kind of went crazy. We created servitor chairs, servitor tables, servitor toilets. And Corax is like, whoa, toilets? And the tech priest is like, yeah, I use it all the time. Haven't had to flush since we got to this planet. You didn't like it? And then, of course, Corvus Corax says, I'm a Primarch. I can't remember the last time I pooped. Poor Corax and poor servitors. It just really sucks to be a human within the Warhammer 40K world, but that's the world we play in, and I love it. I love the lore of these guys. The Khrave are interesting because they're not your typical cookie-cutter Xeno race. When you deal with the big races within Warhammer 40K, you're always some type of humanoid something. Like orcs are just basically dirty, ill-tempered humans. Tau are just stuck-up, psychically gifted humans, and the Tau are just blue, short, communist humans, basically. But when you deal with things like the Khrave, they're sea anemones. They interact completely different. Their military is different. The way that they fight is different. And I like that. Hopefully we see that in the tabletop later on, especially now with Kill Team. It would be really cool to have a Kill Team version of the Khrave, a Kill Team version of the Squats, just all those small little races within Warhammer 40K that don't have a huge tabletop presence, to have it in Kill Team. That would be pretty sweet and awesome. But again, if you guys have any other suggestions for topics of Warhammer 40K, if you guys have any questions that you guys would like me to answer in video form, don't forget to comment down below. We read that stuff every day. If you like our content, support us on Patreon. It's a simple $1 a month, and it helps us create more videos for you guys. If you can't, like I said in the beginning, sharing, liking, and just commenting really helps out the channel. So please do that. But with that said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.